Welcome back to the Gruber Companies, to the Tesla Roadster show. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning and welcome.
And it looks like we've got a different backdrop behind us. Do you guys want to keep the one with all the cars, or do you want to show the Tesla Roadster? This one's pretty cool, too.
Well, you had two in there that were called background. One was yesterday's background, and then this one.
Yeah, let's leave this one. I like it.
I like this one.
Yeah, this one was actually live on the Monroe podcast. I was on the Monroe Live podcast where Sandy and I were talking about a number of different things, and they did a teaser a couple days ago, and this picture shows up. So
That teaser, by the way, is at 30,000 views.
30,000 views for a teaser. Well, what will the real video then, the full video, be like? You can only imagine, right? We've got one right now, too, that is out on our YouTube channel, and it's got over 500,000 views, and it's the one where the customer has a Model 3. He ran out of juice. He got to the supercharger location,
yes.
but he ran out of power, so he couldn't pull into the stall. So rather than lose his space, because there was an empty space there, he laid in front of it until he could call someone to help him put it in tow mode and then push it in the stall. And what ended up happening is one of our friends was there, and there were actually people in Teslas yelling at him, "Get out of the way. What are you doing? Why are you hogging that?" And he was literally laying there on the ground on his cell phone. Well, apparently that took off, went viral, and 500,000 views so far.
I saw that particular article on, I like to look at the MSN feed. That's just kind of my default if I'm not doing much of anything and browsing the news. And that was on the front page of my MSN feed.
Was it really?
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. So it looks like we've got YouTube. Ray Johnson. Welcome, Ray. He's joining us this morning.
Good morning.
He said yesterday we mentioned that the $2 million bid for the 3 Chinese Roadsters fell through due to bidders' insurance issues. Can or did the seller accept a retraction? Or can or should the seller say, "Tough luck, you made the bid"?
That's a really good question, but we're a matchmaking service here. We're not a formal auction house.
Right. Yeah, we are a dating service, and when the buyer and seller don't agree on something, we're not there to facilitate, arbitrate. Our job is to just simply introduce them to each other.
Right. And so basically, Ray, what that means is that a bidder can bid however much they want or however little they want. And the fact that they're the high bidder really doesn't matter. They can pull that bid at any time through our matchmaking service because we have no legal or binding agreements or authority.
Right. And what some of the auction houses do is they have retainers, for example, which prevent this sort of thing from happening. But we have a very gentle what we call a matchmaking service, without stringent requirements, without deadlines, without expiration dates, and free, completely free. So if it evolves into something different in the future, usually these types of changes are made because you have problems along the way, and we haven't really had any. In this particular case, let me explain what's going on. This is a Canadian leasing car, or a car leasing company, brand new, and they're trying to make a splash in the market. And they felt that since they have funding available, that these 3 cars would immediately put them on the map and give them some advertising and some visibility. So to them, it was worth $2 million for 3 Roadsters. The downside, of course, is these Roadsters now were going to be put on the road, and they were going to be driven, and people would be able to lease them, which, if you think about it, presents a whole host of new problems. These are collectible cars. What makes them so unique and valuable is the 0-mile status.
Right. You
start accruing miles, you could go out on our matchmaking site and pick from 50 different Roadsters that you could purchase. So that was part of the issue for us, is we felt that these should be collectible rather than be driven. And for the insurance company, the problem was, in the commercial world, they will not insure any cars over 10 years for this type of application, leasing. Collector cars is a different story, of course. But for daily use, leasing type operations, 10 years is the cutoff. So that was the first problem. These are 13-year-old cars. And then so that was part of the thing that that prevented them. And then the second issue was they felt that there weren't enough parts available for the Tesla Roadster, which isn't too far off base, but there are companies like us that are recreating parts and that are working wonders keeping these cars on the road.
Yeah, yet the insurance company felt that, they were going to be running a risk of having to total a $700,000 car.
Right.
Or something maybe as minor as a fender bender where the car would not be drivable anymore just because of a lack of parts.
And insurance companies routinely will total cars that where the parts are difficult to get, hard to get, or not available. So anyway, that was the reason for the $2 million bid being retracted. But there was a lot of interest for these cars, and now that they're coming here, and we'll get high-quality pictures. We'll have a full dispositioning. We'll have a technical analysis. We'll wake up the 12 volts and find out what the odometer readings are. We'll have a full inventory of all the parts that come with them. Remember, there was a fourth Roadster without the body, and all the parts appear to be there, a lot of which were still in cardboard boxes and not unpacked. So once we have a full inventory and accounting what's there, what the disposition is, we then expect that the bidding will start again in earnest.
I agree with you there. And by the way, these cars are currently on the water. The last that we had heard is that they were being held in international waters off the coast of Vietnam, having to do with Hurricane Hillary that was coming up the western coast of the United States. And possibly even Hurricane Dora that was out near the Hawaiian Islands and was headed north, which would have gone right through the shipping lanes.
Right. So, yeah, we're not sure. They'll arrive September 5th at this point. We don't know what kind of a waiting list there is, if any, in Long Beach to unload these cars. George has joined us from YouTube. He says, "Good morning, guys. Who officially owns these container Roadsters right now as they are being shipped?" I forgot. They are still owned by the same people that came to us months ago to help sell the cars, and they are going to be shipped here, and then we'll start the bidding again.
Looking forward to that. I can't wait to see them when they get in.
It's going to be another unveiling and unsealing.
Oh, yes. It's going to be exciting, that's for sure. Hopefully, it won't be 116 that day.
Yeah. And, somebody pointed out there was an article that was written by Joey Klinder with Teslarati about these cars. I had updated him on what the latest situation was. For those of you interested, if you go to Teslarati, you'll see his brief article on these cars. But in the comments, they're always interesting. You've got the haters, you've got the people that love the cars, and boy, everything in between. It seems like everybody is polarized. You don't get too much middle of the road anyway. But anyway, one of the people pointed out that these are not the first barn find Roadsters, or I should say barn find EVs. Apparently, there were some electric vehicles in the last century, a Baker, for example, that was a barn find at one point in time. And the Baker was one of the early, I believe, electric vehicle taxi cab type cars. Kind of looked like a Model T, a coach-style vehicle. So, yeah, maybe we don't have the first barn find EVs, but they're definitely the first barn find Roadsters, Tesla Roadsters.
Some of the first barn find Teslas that are out there.
Yeah, Teslas, period. Yeah. All right, so one of the things that we're going to start with is questions about the Tesla Roadster battery upgrade type. What kind of cells are in this new R80 for 80 kW or 3.0 battery upgrade? A lot of people are concerned because the 2016 version used a Korean LG cell, which is now beginning to manifest end-of-life symptoms. And so people are concerned. Well, they started production again after suspending production with the 2016 packs. In 2020, they began to make batteries again, Tesla. And the question is, are they using those same faulty LG cells? Because remember, we were not around, or we did not discover that these 2016 packs were going end of life in 2020 when they restarted making these packs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out the good news is that these new packs are using again Panasonic cells, and it's not an official statement from Tesla, but we have it on good faith that these are Panasonic cells.
Yeah, kind of an off the record type of thing. Tesla's not. I don't think Tesla's going to officially admit that the first generation of the 2.0 pack was ever a bad pack because of the liability that would open them up to potentially.
Good point. Good point. Yes. So we have a customer in Texas, actually, that just got his 3.0 upgrade, and he was he's been experimenting, trying to figure out how much range he's going to get. But what I wanted to read you was a statement from Tesla about these 3.0 battery packs, because he asked them, what's the story on these packs? Give me some background. So they said that these 3.0 packs have a newer cell design and stores roughly 40% more energy than the original pack. Now, not the 2016 pack, but the original pack. Because remember, we're going from 53 kW, 2.2 amp hour per cell, to 80 kW at 3.2 amp hour per cell.
Mm-hmm.
They say that the estimated range is 330 miles in ideal range or standard mode charge, which is about 80% charge, and in range mode, when the battery is charged to 100%. I just realized they don't give us a final number here.
I think what they're saying is that 330 miles is the ideal range in range mode when the battery is charged to 100%.
That makes sense, because I just drove 7-Eleven this morning, one of our upgrades.
Yes.
And at home, I got 211 miles in standard mode charge.
Yeah.
Okay. Then they said there is a slight increase in the battery weight. And it increased, can you read that?
Yeah, it says, but the total range increases over 35% from the original Roadster.
Okay, but they don't tell you how much extra weight there is.
Nope, they don't. He's focusing more on the range increase as opposed to the weight increase. And we don't think that weight increase is very significant, because we've dropped some R80 packs, as well as the obviously many of the first generation R53 packs. And the guys have not talked about there being really any noticeable weight difference in the sheets or anything like that.
And if it was substantial, of course, they would have to, again, go through crash testing and a whole host of things. So
yes, that's exactly right.
And then finally, warranty. That's usually a big question. What's the warranty on these new R80 battery packs? Well, Tesla says it's 2 years or 25,000 miles, whichever comes first, under the Tesla Parts Limited warranty. So for those of you interested, and all of you should be that have Roadsters, because you'll eventually have to change your battery pack, we're pleasantly surprised still, because a lot of these Roadsters are 15 years old now, the 2008s, and they're still going strong. All right, any additional questions?
No, George had, from the Watch Rich Rebuilds channel, had commented that he's asking about the barn find Roadsters, mainly because of its important part of the car's history.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very true, very much. Now, we have a question that just seems to be coming in right now. And it is, again, from George. It says, what's stopping us from using or upgrading Model S battery bricks in a Roadster sheet? Is it to stack horizontal position for older Roadsters?
Well, there are a number of reasons. There's actually a couple of hobbyists in Europe that are doing that very thing. They're taking 2170 cells and attempting to shoehorn them into that 1,000-pound battery pack.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest problem is real estate. There just isn't enough of it for these larger cells. And you have firmware issues. The firmware is very insistent that it wants to see 99 bricks. Now, granted, you could rewrite the firmware, but when you do that, you then have to change some of the boards and some of the electronics. And no one in the independent space, like us, has been willing to make the investment to do that kind of a retrofit or that kind of an upgrade.
Right. It's the PEC board, if I remember right, that is being replaced by Tesla themselves. Mm-hmm. And there's a firmware upgrade that Tesla is pretty closely guarding for the 3.0 battery packs. So those two pieces of information are pretty vital in order to have any kind of non-standard battery. And I mean, if the R53 pack is the standard, even the newer R80 pack would be considered a non-standard battery in that case.
Right. So, yeah, the simple answer is compatibility issues that require enormous engineering and expense to resolve. As we spoke a couple of weeks ago, though, there's a German guy that has been working on a replacement battery pack for the Tesla Roadster. He even has a frame. His name is Marco Nolte. He's in the middle of Germany and very knowledgeable, by the way. He was one of our first software subcontractors as we were starting to dive into the Model S's. And he has been working on putting Porsche Taycan battery packs into a Tesla Roadster. And of course, the mechanical, physical part of it is the easy part because, yeah, granted, you've got a given amount of space. You figure out how many packs you can put in there, do a bit of plumbing and mounting, structural support. The hard part is integration. How do you make it talk to the existing hardware and software without making major changes? Although he may be one of the people that can make this come to fruition.
Yeah, Marco Nolte helped us on some of our very early cars with, giving knowledge and some remote training. He's over in Europe and Germany, I think, and with us over here. And so he's an important piece of the history of Gruber Motors, even though as an independent contractor. But he is one of the few in the world that has the kind of talent to do what he's trying to undertake.
We will eventually have him on our podcast. I invited him a couple of weeks ago, and he said he was doing some travel with his. He has a full-time job. The hobbyists typically aren't able to do this full-time unless you have a revenue stream like we do for service. But we'll have him on our podcast, and we'll open it up to questions, and I'm sure he'll be a fascinating individual to tell you all about his advances and where he's going with this.
Very much.
Instagram, MintHill52K says, VinFast listed on a stock exchange and became the world's third largest automobile manufacturer by market capitalization. Now, we're chuckling because this is how the market works. It's all about speculation and emotion and the psychological aspects. When a small startup like this can actually become the third largest manufacturer in the world, that says something.
It does say something. I went ahead and looked up the stock price just now so we could get what a current price is. By the way, we really like the AI. We like ChatGPT and Midjourney. We'll often see that our background pictures are Midjourney generated. Google has its own AI now for searching, and it's experimental, but it's called generative AI.
Really?
And it provides Google's own natural language response to the type of questions. So my question was simply VinFast stock price. Let me just read you what it told us. The stock price for VinFast Auto Limited is currently $45.77. The 52-week range is between $9.11 and $93. So the current price is down 32.6% off of their highs, which happened to be at the end of last week, by the way. The Vietnamese EV startup has a market cap of $107.4 billion, and it has 2.32 billion shares outstanding. The company's founder, Pham Nhat Vuong, controls 99% of the company. He only issued 1% of the company's shares for public purchase. The small float of available shares is possibly one of the main reasons why there's an imbalance in supply and demand and the wild swing in prices.
There you go.
So that makes a lot of sense. And then, of course, this is not professional financial advice. See,
Right.
even the AI says this.
Right.
Consult a financial advisor about your particular circumstance.
So we have yet another world's richest man brewing here.
Possibly, but I
Of course, with that kind of float, he's not liquid, and that valuation that is attached to him isn't realistic.
yeah, it's monopoly money.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not real at all.
It's funny money. Yeah.
It's sure, okay, he's worth 107 billion, but guess what? As soon as he sells a tiny fraction of his shares, he doubles the what's available in the market, and the stock price tanks, and then he's not worth it. So,
Right.
him selling shares of his stock is like somebody driving one of the barn find Roadsters. Every share he sells causes everything else to go down.
Right. So having said that, even though the stock looks like funny money, we're more than pleased that we have another EV manufacturer that's beginning to take fossil fuel burners off the road.
And they are actually selling electric vehicles. They're not the vaporware that's left to come. They actually have California showrooms where they're selling their cars.
Yeah. All right. Looks like a bunch of questions coming in at this point. George is asking, how do I buy Gruber Motor Company stock? Well, we haven't had an IPO yet, and it's not available for purchase. We're privately held, but when we do, maybe we'll have some funny money too then. That'll be interesting, won't
Just
it?
maybe. That would be really interesting. Highlander on YouTube, just checking in. Have to schedule my lunch around your live podcast. P.S. Kindness is still free.
Thank you. And
Thank
thanks
you.
for joining us, Highlander. All right. So one of the things I wanted to cover this morning was a question on Facebook. A customer piped up. He just got his car PPF'd, his Roadster, looking good. And he said, what is my car worth? And somebody popped up and said, probably $65K. Well, I want to talk about that for a bit. If you've been watching Bring a Trailer, the Roadsters are just not getting the kind of prices they should. We're looking at cars selling for $60,000, $70,000. They're worth far more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that's how auctions work. First of all, you have an expiration date, and you've got saturation levels. The people that were interested in buying Roadsters from Bring a Trailer may have flushed out at this point. So, what I suggested to this owner is, take a look at our Roadster matchmaking site. There are over 60 sold Roadsters out there for the last 2 years. And the prices are still listed under the sold cars. Now, granted, these cars don't always sell for precisely the asking price, but it's usually not too far off. We're talking about 5% maybe off of the asking price. If somebody is desperate to sell, it may be as much as 10%, but that's pushing it. So you can use that as a benchmark to determine what your Roadster may be worth. Now, remember, in the world of Roadsters, it's also regional. The European Roadsters don't tend to sell as quickly as the ones in the U.S. because we seem to have a larger base of interested parties wanting to buy Roadsters. That may change in Europe, but at this point, it hasn't. The second thing is, what color Roadster do you have? Well, the Radiant Red was the most popular Roadster color, and the market is flush with those. Now, when you get into your brilliant yellow, your very orange, lightning green, now you're talking about something that may have more appeal because there's someone out there waiting for just that color to come along.
Sure, that makes sense. And I mean, just look at the picture behind us. What do you have? There's 1, 2, 3, and then back behind your head are a couple more Radiant Reds. There's another one right behind my head. Further up, let's see, right about there is a Radiant Red. Further up still is another Radiant Red. So there's all kinds of Radiant Reds. We have 2 of the yellows. There are no orange ones in there, which actually kind of surprises me. We usually have at least one orange one. There's a couple of blue ones. There are no green ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the lightning greens are pretty rare. And if you notice that toolbox in the front, they're in the middle kind of by my head. There actually was a Roadster color called Insane Green. There's only one of those in the United States. It's in Chicago. It's VIN number 100. In Europe, they've got about 5 of those. And then in the U.S., there's actually one in Texas that got wrapped that color. But for as far as original factory colors, That insane green is probably a car that would sell rapidly here in the U.S. if it ever became available. Those brilliant yellows, we'll go months without seeing one of those, and suddenly we have two of them in the shop. One actually came from Ukraine, and it's the one that is sitting up on the lift, I believe. And then Thunder Gray is another very popular color, kind of a blah color. And then you get Twilight Blue. Now, some people love that color. It's a very dark, sort of metallic blue, but they're plentiful. In fact, in that picture there, you can probably spot a bunch of them. The Fusion Red, which is the Ferrari red, those are not rare, but those tend to be popular, just like Ferrari figured out. You know, a red tan Ferrari, the sales of those cars were infinitely higher than any other color they ever made. And it was hard to get Ferrari to actually make any other color. A friend of mine in town here, when the Testarossa first came out in the last century, in the 90s, he said, I want a yellow Testarossa. And Ferrari, they initially balked and said, no, we don't do that. So he persisted. It took him 2 years to get his car. He finally got his yellow Testarossa, and he got a license plate Giallo, Gillo, which is yellow in in Italian. But so there are a lot of things that affect valuation, and then of course condition. If it's high mileage, even though it's an unfair criteria for an EV, that still people are applying the internal combustion engine car rules to vehicle valuation. You know, there are very few parts in an EV that will wear. And we'll get into this later. We've got suspension stuff that we're going to tell you about that does wear in a Tesla Roadster, and then you have deferred maintenance in the electronics. But unlike an ICE vehicle car where you have an enormous amount of parts that wear out, bearings and bushings and plumbing and hoses and belts and rings and pistons, and in an EV, mileage isn't quite as important as it is in the EV or in the ICE world. So those are some of the things that affect valuation. I've seen Roadsters that were pushing 80 to 90,000 miles sell for next to nothing, when really there wasn't much wrong with the car, especially if it was stored inside. It wasn't a daily driver, and it was strictly freeway type driving in Los Angeles or in California somewhere.
You know, as we're talking about these valuations, it reminds me of that Roadster 295 that we saw not long ago. It had been listed on eBay for $84,500.
As a buy it now. Yes,
as a buy it now. Somebody, the highest bid that they had was about $68,000, and it was bricked. Mm-hmm. So that's the first issue, is you've got somebody saying, what is my good Roadster that I just had PPF wrapped worth? And somebody else comes back and says, 65. No.
Right.
Especially knowing that we put that Roadster, after it failed its auction on eBay, onto our matchmaking service. And what did it take? A week and a half before it sold? It was asking for $120,000. The seller doesn't want us to list the selling price, but it wasn't that far off of its asking price.
And the reason it wasn't too far off, they misunderstood the car. I mean, this car had 1,488 miles on the odometer. Mm-hmm. Now, take a look at the cars that have sold low mileage on our site or on the Bring a Trailer site. A car that's got that kind of low mileage was pushing 200K. So anyway, recognizing that this was a diamond in the rough, we relisted it, properly presented it, and it fetched about 20-30% more than it was offered on eBay.
Yeah.
Now, the car's in our shop currently, by the way. It's going to go through some upgrades, but it is absolutely immaculate on the inside. It's the first twilight blue, dark blue Tesla Roadster that we've seen with bright yellow seats on the inside. Original factory leather, bright yellow seats. It looks kind of cool once you get used to it.
Yeah.
But it's not what you would expect. But so anyway, the point is valuation on Roadsters. It is, and feel free to call us at any point in time. I'd be more than happy to discuss it with you. And definitely check out the matchmaking site if you're curious what your Roadster's worth. All right, looks like a bunch of questions just came in.
We've got a couple questions from George, or a couple comments from George. First, he says, Elon, maybe Elon reinvented and starting selling EVs to get ICE vehicles off the road, so he would have more rocket fuel for his space rockets.
That never occurred to me, but it makes perfect sense.
It does make perfect sense.
A lot
yeah.
of fuel. And then George again says, Orange, you glad there aren't any Roadsters at the shop? LOL. All right, George, you had to throw that in there. That was a good one.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Oh.
Highlander on YouTube asks us, are you guys going to the Fully Charged event in Vancouver? He says, I just bought my 3-day ticket, 25% off on Sandy's X site. Will anybody from Gruber be going to the Vancouver happening?
I didn't even know about it, but this goes back to our other companies.
Yeah.
All right. And let me just tell you a short story then. We've always, we have grown on cash flow, which means that we don't have any funny money to spend. Right. And if you don't have it available, you can't spend it. So our marketing typically has been guerrilla style marketing. And instead of doing expensive things like flying people all over the country to trade shows to find customers, we have typically done things that didn't cost as much, but were equally as fruitful.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not used to traveling around, and the social media guys are constantly telling me, you got to start doing it, Pete. You got to do what Sandy does and all these other guys. You got to go to these events like Tesla Roundup or whatever it was.
Yeah, the Tesla Roundup in San Luis Obispo. Yeah. We have this Fully Charged event in Vancouver. Maybe one of these days.
Yeah. And but anyway, in the meantime, so we don't typically look for these types of events. Eventually, yeah, I think we will go. We'll probably take our social media team with us. We'll do some videotaping. But for now, these kinds of things aren't, on the front burner at our company. And it's got to be expensive, guys. I mean, I look at Sandy sometimes, and it's not just him. He's got 2 or 3 people with him. He's got an entourage, and then hotel rooms, rental car,
Oh, yeah.
and, the salaries and all of that. It gets expensive, and you've got to have return on investment in order to fund stuff like this. All right.
On TikTok, only my dog loves me. We'll have to roll that question up a little bit because I can't see over the camera. Doesn't anyone want to know why these guys are both wearing sunglasses inside?
Only my dog loves me. Everybody wants to know. Everybody on the planet. And that's one of the reasons we're withholding the final release of this video.
Yeah.
Until the mystery dies down and the intrigue and the attention that we get from it, we just keep wearing sunglasses without revealing the real cause.
I'd love to hear people's reasons as to why they think we're wearing sunglasses. We get some really spectacular reasons sometimes.
So we got a Tesla Roadster item here. On one of the other Facebook sites, there was a Tesla owner that chimed in and said, I recently purchased a new OVMS unit for my Roadster. That's an open vehicle management system, which is a little black box, literally, that goes up underneath the passenger compartment by the VMS module, and it communicates directly with the car. And what it does is it reestablishes a remote connection to your car through your cell phone. So you can get information about your charge activity, whether the car is being driven, what kind of errors it's throwing. We highly recommend this little black box for any Roadster. The Roadsters originally had this. It was a 2G device, and it was only available to service centers who could then dial into your car and do some remote diagnosis. As the 2G network died, so did that capability. And Mark Webb Johnson and his team in China actually developed this OVMS box. And it is quite a useful add-on for your Tesla Roadster. Any of you interested? We have them on our e-store. They're not too difficult to install. We provide programming support once you get it. Nick does a good job with that.
Oh, he does. And I remember my background, of course, is technology. It's IT. And I remember working in software, working in accounting systems. I was working with a small third-party consulting company as we were implementing an accounting system for somebody, and he had a manufacturing module that was a bolt-on module. It worked really well. And in fact, his manufacturing module, works so well that we use it here today at Gruber for our COM product manufacturing. And his module was sold to the OEM of the accounting system.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that happened after that sale is that all kinds of issues seemed to crop up in the software. The underlying issue, though, wasn't that the software was necessarily poor quality. It's that the software suddenly was used in a whole host of use applications for which it was never designed.
Mm-hmm.
And the OVMS that Mark Webb Johnson built, we've talked to Mark Webb Johnson, and he told us the story how he built in his kitchen, basically, half a dozen of these small units, and half a dozen turned into 20, turned into version 1. It's been a very organic growth process, not unlike what we'd have done here at Gruber. One of the things that outcrops from that is that you have a perfectly good system that gets used in use cases that were never even remotely thought of at the time that the system was created.
Mm-hmm.
When he built his OVMS system, Mark Webb Johnson simply wanted a way to talk to his Roadster, because the 2G network in Hong Kong was replaced by 3G network long before the 2G network here in the United States was decommissioned. He never thought of, I'm going to need to have a specialty system that has its own internal modem and 4G cell service that's strong enough to be able to go through concrete in a parking garage.
Mm-hmm.
And yet that's the question that's being asked. Why is this system not working properly? Because I'm storing my car down in the lower levels of a parking garage.
Right.
Well, it's working just fine. It's just it's a new use thing. Fortunately, these guys have kept on top of it, and they had a quick solution for that question as well.
We have an image, Jesse, that we can pop up. It's called the OVMS error image. And this is the error that you will get if your vehicle is in an area parked in a spot where it can't communicate with GPS, or it's getting errors because there's a weak signal. Yeah, there you go. So if you're getting that, you have OVMS. The fix is, according to Mark Webb Johnson, who chimed in, he says probably the GPS in the car is wandering, particularly in a covered garage.
Mm-hmm.
You can change the threshold with a configuration set vehicle flatbed dot alarm distance 2000. Here's where it gets technical. I would suggest that if you have that problem, we can help you with that, and we can help you with that configuration setting. He says you can also disable by setting alarm distance to 0. The default, by the way, he says is 500 meters. So anyway, there is a fix, and if you're having that problem, that was the advice from the originator of this product, the OVMS product.
I also thought it was it's notable and a very cool thing that Mark himself still gets on to the forums and to the Facebook, and he's supporting his product, and I have a lot of respect for that.
You know, there are a number of these guys out there that are in the Roadster community, keeping the cars alive. I had a long chat with Mr. Sharp the other day, Henry Sharp, who makes, as you know, the CAN Junior and CAN Senior Tesla adapters, which now allow you to charge from J1772 or the new NACS standard, not supercharging, but the NACS destination chargers. But there are a number of these people out there that help the community. They were knowledgeable in certain areas, and they developed product. They supported the community with advice. The Tesla Motor Club, by the way, site is full of these kinds of gems of information where people have posed a problem, and some of these experts have chimed in. And
wonderful site, and it's just further evidence of the passion that this community has for Teslas in general, but the Tesla Roadster in particular.
So speaking of passion, one of the most passionate Roadster owners that we know is Rafael de Mestre, who is the very same person that went around the world in a Tesla Roadster in 2012 and is now replicating that feat again. And to make a long story short, the car got bricked, went to a museum in Europe, in actually Munich, got bricked there. Then it came to the United States to have the battery replaced. And the car got shipped to our service center. We shipped it to the Tempe, Arizona Tesla Service Center. We did a number of improvements, a number of upgrades to the car to weatherproof it. We rebuilt the PEM completely, overhauled it, the power electronics module, and the car is now again on a trip around the world. It's currently in the Seattle area waiting to get on a ship. And so anyway, Raphael reached out to us and said, yeah, it looks like I've got a situation here with customs. They're concerned about this battery that just got installed, and they want to make sure that it's a brand new battery. I looked at their requirements, and it was about 2 pages long with all kinds of regulation gibberish. It's the best thing that I can think of.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And so anyway, I wrote a note to the customs people there, explaining to them that the Tesla Roadster battery is brand new. First of all, it is the most coddled battery pack in the EV world, and the primary reason is at the time that the engineers were designing a multi-cell 18650 battery pack for an electric vehicle, no one had ever done this before. So they overcompensated in a number of different areas, such as they weren't sure what would happen if you drove this into a lake, so they put an immersion sensor. They put a shock sensor in the car. They put a smoke detector in the battery. We're talking about the battery now, into the ESS pack, with lots of monitoring and controls, lots of safety controls. In speaking to Martin Eberhardt last year, he was speculating that perhaps the reason these other new EV manufacturers are having some difficulty with their batteries is because they weren't putting the same kind of attention and design talent into this battery pack. So I pointed that out in this article. This is probably the safest EV battery pack that you're ever going to see compared to all the others that will be traversing the ocean soon. And hopefully that will get Raphael out of a bind here so that he can ship his car over to Asia and continue his journey around the world.
I certainly hope that it does. You know, it's I know that Raphael's first choice would have been to put his car on something akin to the Aventor
A sailboat.
clipper ship.
Yeah,
it
clipper
was
ship,
a clipper
right.
ship that came from not far from Germany, right? Or
No, it was
it
actually
from
Hamburg. Yeah, it came
Hamburg.
out of Hamburg. They transported from Munich, overland to Hamburg,
Yeah.
which is a port city.
And
then it came.
so it went from Hamburg over to Miami, and it was completely, we call it green energy now, but it was 200 or 300-year-old technology. It was a sailboat.
Yeah. And, you would think, well, okay, it's a sailboat. It was a clipper ship, but I'm sure that there was some kind of ice vehicle or some sort of an ice process involved in case you ran out of wind. Well, it turns out that this was a true clipper ship without any motorized transport attached.
Yes.
And the reason we know that, it was about 2.5 weeks late because the winds were not favorable, and it was hovering around Havana, Cuba,
Right.
because they couldn't get the right kind of wind to take it to Miami.
Right. They had to hover around the leeward side of the island to keep away from the winds which were consistently blowing off the U.S. shore and toward the open ocean.
Right.
And once the winds shifted, they were able to come up into Miami.
So his first choice was, of course, to go again by this type of transport. Now, just to show you how committed he is to green transportation, we were unable to get a Tesla semi to transport the car from Miami to our shop because the semis end of last year had not been released yet. So unfortunately, the car was then transported with diesel type transport to our shop in Phoenix from Miami. Well, Raphael is so committed to proving that emission-free transport is important and possible, he then drove the car from our shop in Phoenix all the way back to Miami to go up to Nova Scotia and then go cross-country to continue that emission-free tour.
That's exactly right. And my understanding as well is that, from speaking to Raphael, he will not count his trip around the world as complete until he gets at least up to Hamburg, or ideally gets that clipper ship and comes back and
Right.
to Miami where he started everything off.
And, we took him to dinner, and one of the conversations was some frustration about how the first trip, he was able to go through many different countries, including Russia and Ukraine.
Yes.
Now he says, this is a war-torn mess over there. And in order for him to continue or to take that same trip, he was going to have to go around the southern portions of Kazakhstan and some of these countries that are questionable in terms of their ability to allow, foreigners to come into the country.
Right.
And he's certainly not going to be able to go through Russia or Ukraine.
Right. Well, I mean, how safe is it for him to go through potentially the northern edge of Pakistan and India, or to go through Afghanistan or some of those other areas that are known worldwide to be potentially dangerous to outsiders?
Yeah. So dangerous that he may be labeled as an American spy if he were to try to go through Russia, and detained now for the next 2 decades.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that he's taken a different path.
Yeah.
All right, so another few questions here. Time for the Rich Sunglass commercial. Talking about Richard. Richard, do you want to talk about your sunglass promotion?
I sure do, Pete. I'm glad you asked, and I'm glad you asked, George. So our sunglass holders are now available on the website for $79.99. They're great if you have a single pair of sunglasses. They'll hold it right where it's supposed to be. Easy to keep track of. They fit in perfectly fine. So you got that. But if you've got a second pair of sunglasses that you also need to put away, you can buy a second pair. Again, $79.99 unless you use code Richard. You get 10% off.
Or you can use code Aaron.
No.
Hey, you know what, Pete?
What?
Since I've gotten the sunglass case for my sunglasses, I've been able to run faster in softball, jump higher in softball, and I get more girls.
Is that right?
That is
There you
true.
go. That's a
Yeah.
compelling
Don't tell Sarah
reason
that,
to
though.
buy that.
Yes. So buy them
real
today.
quick, results may vary on that.
Correct. These are not verified nor tested.
It's almost as good as owning a Tesla Roadster. All right, YouTube Highlander says, more on topic. Tesla formed a partnership with Lincoln Tech School for free tech training on Teslas. I called them 2 hours ago. Thank you for that bit of information, Highlander, because we get people all the time that ask what curriculum is available, how can we get into the EV business, and what kind of training is available.
Yes. George on YouTube has another question for us. He says, were the body interior and interior colors decided by Lotus or by Tesla? Who painted the cars originally? And then if the colors were changed from Lotus, was there a new trim color tag or sticker added to the car by Tesla?
You know what, George? You're asking that question in the right forum. Oftentimes we have old timers from Tesla that are on this or that are in the audience, and we'd love to have you chime in. I do know that there were unique Lotus colors that did not cross over into the Tesla Roadster, except in one case where we had VIN number 500, which was the last 1.5 Roadster built, which was a copper color, which was a Lotus color.
Mm-hmm.
And then I believe one of the really bright green colors, maybe it was insane green, was also a Lotus color. But that's a great question. Yeah, where did the colors for Roadster come from, guys? Please help us with this.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the answer on that particular one. Good questions. Do we have anything? I thought we have other questions coming up. Yeah, YouTube, Highlander again. Can I buy a Gruber t-shirt? Well, find it on the website.
That is one of the next things I think that we're going to be putting up. We just have to talk to Victor and to making a batch.
We're still working on that.
Yeah.
Getting some designs ready.
And what colors would you guys like to see? Everything right now seems to be black that we're making, but
yes.
Yeah, if there's some other color preferences, let us know what that is. By
all means. George also mentions to Highlander that I've been asking them the same question for a while now. That's right, George, and we've also been in touch with Victor about that.
And then Lightning Rod says from YouTube, hello from Thunder Bay. Great interview with Munro and Associates the other day. And by the way, Lightning Rod, thank you for chiming in. I saw your comment in the video. And Sandy and I make a pretty good team when we get together. We have a lot to talk about and a lot in common. So the next portion, that was a teaser that you saw. We don't know when that's coming out yet, do we?
It's coming out tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow?
Yeah, they said in the post for that teaser on Twitter that the full episode will be out Thursday.
I think that they are probably realizing it was a successful combo, because if you look at their other Monroe Live, by the way, their main channel has over 300,000 subscribers. Monroe Live has only 8,000 or so, and their videos typically get 2,000 views or something like
Yeah,
that.
well, Monroe Live is their main one. Monroe Live podcast is their smaller one.
That's a smaller one. Okay.
It's just related to their podcast, yeah.
But this particular one is up to how much now? 30, 40,000, you said?
30,000, I think, yeah.
30,000 is just a teaser. So it looks like they've got a good combination. And usually those of us in the influencer space like this, when we see a successful video, we do more of it immediately,
Oh, yes.
because we have no clue what works and what doesn't. It's all trial and error. As much as this may seem calculated and planned, it is not. We have no idea often what's going to take off.
It's actually 40,000 now, sorry.
40,000. Okay,
Yeah,
there you go.
it's gone up since I checked it a few hours ago this morning.
Now, see, Jesse knows this well, because we will agonize over a video sometimes for 2 to 3 weeks, writing scripts and doing takes and re-editing and editing, and it flops. And then you've got that video where the guy's laying down in front of his car, and that one goes to 500,000, and it wasn't even edited or thumbnailed or anything.
It's now the most successful video we've ever posted.
Yeah, it's sobering, because we've got so much solid, meaningful content out there on our YouTube channel, and when it's silly stuff like this that takes off, you just have to wonder,
The guys laying down in the parking lot are going to win every time, Pete.
Got to do more of it.
The other
then.
thing I was suggesting to Pete the other day is we got to do some of those animal videos. Those are out there getting millions of likes in a couple hours too. So
We need to get a few ferrets, throw them in a
ferrets, some cats,
Roadster.
insects, something.
Yeah, well, okay. So we got a picture for you. Can we throw up Dustin Hoffman? So I didn't realize it, and it kind of tells you how many Roadsters we have here, but a customer reminded me that they would like to sell their Roadster, and it's bricked currently, hard bricked. What that means is there are some Roadsters we can't fix, because if the state of bricking is too long, there are bricks, literally a collection of 69 18650 cells that are below 2 volts long enough to where nothing is going to bring them back to life. This was one of those. And she reminded me that she wanted to sell it, try it as a brick Roadster, and then once the battery comes from Tesla, she'll sell it as a functioning car. But she sent me a picture, and she says, and remember, this was Dustin's car, Dustin Hoffman, VIN number 133. So that's what we're throwing up there. I don't know when he sold it, but these are the second owners. Somebody chimed in, by the way, once we posted this on Facebook. Yeah, well, Clooney had one too, and he hated his car, his Roadster, right? Well, that was true. He had problems with his 2008 Roadster. But remember that a lot of these celebrities were taking a chance on Tesla early in the day, and some of them got the very low VINs, like Clooney's was number 8, I believe. Well, those were not reliable cars. They were still, ironing out the bugs in those cars. 133 would have been better, and I don't remember reading anything about Dustin being upset about his car not functioning well. Although, if anybody knows him, ask him. Let's get his experience with his Roadster. So anyway, this car is going to be available on our matchmaking site. Typically, a brick Roadster will sell around $60,000 in today's market, because what people are doing is they're looking at the average selling price for Roadsters and calculating that to be about $90,000, maybe $100,000, and they're going to add $30,000 to a brick Roadster, because that's what it's going to cost them to put the car back on the road. However, this being a celebrity-owned car changes these rules quite a bit. It was kind of like that VIN 295 that had extremely low mileage.
Right.
It didn't sell as a brick car for $60,000. It sold for something shy of $120,000.
Yes.
So this car, if it follows the same comp value, and by the way, just like in real estate, when you want to value something, you take a look at your comp values. If you want to sell your house, you take a look at what your neighbors' houses have been selling for, and you get a price per square foot, and that's a pretty good benchmark for you as an asking price. Well, you can do the same thing with Roadsters. The last celebrity Roadster that that sold was VIN 71. It was a signature 100 car, but it was owned by the Red Hot Chili Peppers drummer, and I can't think of his name now. It wasn't Chad West, but it's on our census program, actually. And it sold for just around $200,000. So pedigreed roadsters are definitely going to sell for more than the general non-pedigreed currently. And I think Mark is looking up the name for you.
I am.
Yeah, it's Chad Smith.
Used to, that's what we thought originally, but it was actually another drummer or maybe another band member, bass player. Well, he's going to bring it up.
There's
here.
Flea he's the bass player for Red Hot
Flea?
Chili Peppers.
Yeah, and Chad
Flea.
Smith is the drummer for Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Okay. If you go to our census site, I got an update from one of our customers who said, no, it wasn't Chad West, it was this guy's name. And then maybe Aaron, who knows the Red Hot Chili Peppers, can tell us what instrument he plays in that band.
Yeah, we're looking that one up right now as we speak.
So for those of you interested in a celebrity car that like Dustin Hoffman, by the way, it was embarrassing the other day. I said, hey, we got Dustin Hoffman's car. And you know what Richard said? He said, who's that?
Yeah.
Don't you criticize me.
Oh.
And of course, when I pointed out The Graduate, Rain Man, that might have been before his time, but there was a more current one, which was
Hook.
The Hook. Okay.
You know, Dustin Hoffman played Captain Hook, and it was more of a kid's.
I mean, Hook is still
Kids
like
movie
20
and-
years old, though.
Well, yeah, but still.
I don't think I've seen Dustin Hoffman in a movie in a long time.
And while he's looking that up, for those of you that grew up in the 60s, was that Graduate movie not a pivotal movie for you as a young man, actually having a mature, beautiful older woman seduce you? I mean, that was like the Farrah Fawcett Majors posters on the wall, or the Countach Lamborghini posters on the wall. It was an inspirational thing for anybody that had raging hormones in the 60s.
Real
Yeah.
quick, sorry. Hook is actually 32 years old.
Okay.
No,
More
I-
recent, before my life began.
Okay. I have that Red Hot Chili Peppers name. Okay. It is Flea. Michael
Okay, all right.
Michael Peter Balzery, otherwise known as Flea, is the person from the Red Hot Chili Peppers who was the other celebrity owner. So this is the 133 is the Dustin Hoffman Roadster. That one is up for is going to be coming up for sale, but we're going to sell it as a Roadster with a brick battery. That Roadster for Flea, if I remember right, Pete, sold for somewhere around $120,000 with a brick battery. Is that correct?
No, you're talking about VIN 71 now.
Yeah, VIN 71.
No, that was $200,000.
Oh,
and it was on Bring a
$200,000.
Trailer, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
That was one of their successful sales.
Yeah, that definitely was. And by the way, guys, we've got some batteries over here. Pete's going to need some batteries for his headphones.
Yeah. Yeah, my apologies. I have a headset here that actually is old school, and it has two AAA batteries in it. So when that goes out, I can still hear myself, but
Yeah. So two things. Well, first we'll get to some. First, I'll mention the banging going on in the background. We get questions about that every so often.
Right.
That is the sound of money.
all right. And by the way, it's not banging in the background of our green screen image, although there's plenty of noise there too. It's more like ratchets there, right? It's the banging outside behind our green screen in our warehouse. Thank you.
You bet. Yeah, we are in an active production environment. Our studio sits just outside one of our production warehouses. That banging that you're hearing is actually somebody with a nail gun building pallets for our uninterruptible power supply systems, batteries, battery modules, things like that we send out. We have to build heavy-duty pallets because of the weight of what we end up shipping in many cases. So now also for questions, we were getting behind a little bit on them. On YouTube, George is asking, was looking for a Mr. Pete bobblehead. So that's something that we'll have to look at. And then Highlander for the t-shirts. He says black and white works, but it needs to be cotton for arc flash reasons. That is a great idea. Also, George has a question for us where he says, does Gruber Motors have solar panels and or battery storage on the building?
No, we looked into it. Remember, 2 decades ago, and it was cost prohibitive at the time.
It was cost prohibitive, and even now the solar panels just haven't gone down enough. We did look at it even while I was here just 4 or 5 years ago, I guess, and it was something like a 20-year payback. Just not very sensible from a finance perspective. So he says, then if not, what's the electric bill like charging cars all day? We definitely run our electricity, but I think part of that gets offset by the fact that that building has LED bulbs.
Mm-hmm.
Each light bulb, and there are 244 of them, if I remember right, in the Gruber Motors building.
Sure.
But every light bulb only pulls like 8 watts.
And 30 years ago, when the CFLs were popular, you didn't have LEDs yet that were commercially, viable. We took high bay lights. Those are those big domed ones you see at your Costco, for example.
Mm-hmm.
We took out the sodium vapor, the big bulbs, and that big transformer, and we actually rewired those to accept 4 CFLs with a 1 to 4 adapter, which made it much more energy efficient. So we've always been on the cusp or on the forefront of those kinds of initiatives. But yeah, solar is definitely something that would make sense here. I see those cars charging out there by our chargers, the Tesla Model S's, and you can hear, well, I think it's one of yours because you keep yours, cooling during the day.
Yeah, I'll keep mine cooling during the day typically, because with as hot as the summer gets here in Phoenix, I've noticed that's a strategy that I have to take to help keep the car battery cool enough so that I have air conditioning when I head home.
Oh, I thought you were trying to lower the temperature in Phoenix with your car.
No, it would be a nice one.
Isn't that also doesn't that also help with the melting screen?
Yeah, I suppose
it probably does. The alternate way to help with the melting screen is to do what I did on my blue car. Let it melt.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's all going to be gone, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Until your wife puts her new leather gloves underneath that screen, and it drips all that gooey, sticky stuff that you can't get off on those.
Oh, I know.
That's what happened to me.
Yeah, I know.
Wow, it looks like we got a bunch here. Highlander, okay, black and white works.
Peter, you still your batteries didn't work?
No, they didn't, but I'm good. I can paraphrase here. Lightning Rod, he says, what would be great is a recommended pathway for existing small shops to start migrating toward 21st century automotive shops. I fully agree with you, Lightning Rod. We just don't have a clear path for that. Without getting too lengthy here, if you take your average mechanic, even master mechanic, highly skilled often in rebuilding transmissions, for example, their entire orientation is completely different than working in electronics and working with batteries, using that type of test equipment, understanding what the components are. Just like I would be lost if I opened up a transmission and saw all these pumps and valves and guides and all that.
If I remember right, it was our conversation with Sandy on our show a couple months back where he said, my grandfather was a master mechanic for steam engines. And diesel engines were coming out at the beginning of the 20th century, and he was lost. He lost his steam engine job, and he couldn't get another mechanic's job because he didn't know how to work diesel engines, and that's where everything was going.
Yeah. It is very deceptive because, these EVs look like cars. They look just like what they're working on, but they're not.
Yeah. Oh, it's everything with that EV drivetrain is unique to the electric vehicle, and you're just not going to need as many people, especially you're not going to need the high-skilled people to do brake jobs and shocks.
Yeah, and you can't put it back into the realm of easier or harder, or one is more skilled or less skilled. The other day I saw a guy tearing down a Ferrari engine, a 355 engine, on YouTube, and I was amazed for 20 minutes the amount of stuff that was in that engine block as he began to take things off of that.
Yeah, and that skill level is just out of sight. So you're exactly right. That's a great point. It's these people are incredibly highly skilled, but they're not applicable skills.
Exactly. Yeah, good point. So YouTube, Lightning Rod again, tools, techniques, etc. Yep. Tools is definitely a big one. strategies and techniques, what we find is that hiring people from the electronics world is a much easier transition.
Yeah.
They already understand the circuit boards and the type of equipment that is used to test them, and much easier transition.
You know, just like Elon and Martin and team had to really reinvent so much when they built those Roadsters and the first electric cars, we're finding as one of the very first of the independent service shops that we are having to reinvent the way that you go about fixing cars.
Oh, very
And
much so.
even as many years as we are into it, I guess we're probably 8 years into this now. We're still having to invent stuff and figure out things for the first time all the time.
And with the Roadsters, it's for two reasons. One is a lot of the original parts are no longer available, so you end up having to make parts.
Yeah.
And the test equipment ends up being all customized, so you have to be able to build that. First of all, understand what's going on in the car, what kind of test equipment you need, what kind of tools you need, and then you have to be able to fabricate and to build those.
Yeah, and even an electrical engineer,
Yeah.
if they don't have good troubleshooting skills, they're not going to be able to help.
Good point. All right, YouTube, Highlander, we need to bring that up just a little bit, guys, so I can see it.
Oh, you mean
One more.
lightning rod? LOL, try a ferret cam if we're going to have ferrets.
Yeah. So Highlander says, yes, you have solid content. That's why I watch. In the YouTube area, you are the most interactive. P.S. Pete, the video guys deserve a raise. If they can read my stuff, they deserve a raise. Oh, boy, I know what I'm going to be dealing with when I go back upstairs.
Yeah, I know.
Pete, on a completely unrelated note, do you have time for unrelated note? Yeah, do you have time for a meeting right after the show?
Yeah, see, they're starting already. Thanks, Highlander. Appreciate it. YouTube, Lightning Rod. Hello, Highlander. Gruber does have the most informative channel for people that are interested in these vehicles that don't really have any other access to information about them.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Much appreciated. You know, when I was with Sandy Monroe, for example, there are a lot of people out there that have areas of expertise. And what makes it interesting is you can, see and combine all of those. But yeah, we definitely are in a niche market.
Yes, and then George says he agrees with Lightning Rod. Highlander says, again, I agree. No other platforms informs like Gruber. So we appreciate the compliments, guys. Trucker Alistair on YouTube. First, good morning, Trucker. Good afternoon for you from where you're at, it looks like. Says, hey, guys, greetings from Fredericton, New Brunswick. Get yourself a squirrel to fake his own death underneath a Roadster.
All right. See, there's a challenge for you guys.
Yes. Then George, what is the ignition or activation button on a Roadster?
There is there's a switch position which is identical to a starter motor position where it would normally crank the starter.
Yeah.
That's the part that turns on the electronic switch pack to then activate the electronics in the car. So you get a little ding ding, and you know that.
Yeah. So basically, George, it's a key.
Yeah. That's true. The Roadster is old school. It's a combination key, the mechanical key, and a fob combination. And of course, the later version, they did away with that completely. And what you get with your Model S is a little replica of the Model S car, which is the key. The problem with that, by the way, is as we were buying these Tesla Model S's flood damage cars, half the time we would not get the keys. And the reason was the staff at the auction houses took those home for their kids as toys.
Yeah, I can't blame them on that. They're very elegant little toy type things. The other thing I've noticed in some of the Model S's, you get things like a battery is low on the ignition, and if you don't have two keys, one to check off, then that battery is low message just stays there forever. So it happens. It happens.
So Jesse, I got another picture for you to pop up there. It's Drive-In-1. And this is something that was released actually a couple of weeks ago. A number of magazines have picked it up already. We got this one off, I think, Teslarati. Tesla, again, is thinking outside the box. they realized that they're going to be able to create the next generation of gas stations, and they began to think about, in my opinion at least, what should an EV fueling station be offering. And this is a prime example of some really cool new directions. This is a diner that is also a supercharger, that is also a drive-in movie theater, and a restaurant with a lower and an upper deck. And guess what, guys? It sits in the middle of Santa Monica, not too far from Tesla's first sales and service operation, which was at the 405 and Santa Monica Boulevard. Now, the reason I know this is because the original owner of the building at 405 and Santa Monica was approached by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpening many years ago, and they said they wanted to lease space from him to start their first service and sales center. He looked at their financials and said, no, guys, sorry, way too many red flags. I'm not going to be able to lease to you. So Mark and Martin went back to Tesla. By that time, Elon had joined the company, and, Elon decided, let me give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
So he puts a bunch of patents into a briefcase, a satchel, as the customer called it. And when I say customer, this owner of these commercial buildings ended up being a Roadster customer and then our customer eventually. He says one day Elon shows up. Of course, Elon wasn't famous yet, and I'm sure the dialogue went something like, "Who are you? Oh, you're with those guys that I wouldn't give any lease space to, right? All right." So anyway, they sat down, and Elon said, look, I know our financials don't look very good, but I want to show you some things that might convince you that we're a viable company. And he opens up his briefcase. He shows them all of the patents that they had collected. He describes the vision to him of having emission-free transportation, helping the planet. And you know what? Elon is very influential and charismatic.
Yes.
So Jim, the owner of these buildings, said, I bent some rules and I allowed them to lease with some conditions. And one of those conditions, or two of them, were that they had to give him one of the first 100 signature cars, and he wanted VIN 100.
Yes.
VIN 100 was already spoken for. The Fresh and Easy CEO owned that car. So they gave him VIN 99. But another provision was they needed to paint it a special color, not just the normal run-of-the-mill Roadster colors, and it had to match Jim's 1931 Bugatti a Bugatti race car that he has in France. And anyway, that's the backstory on the first Tesla sales and service building in Santa Monica. And this particular diner that you're seeing here is within stone's throw of that first building that they leased near UCLA, actually. There's one other picture, if we can pop that up, Jesse. It's called Background. And that gives you the full frontal view of this unusual EV gas station, as I guess we could call it.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of fun stuff on these pictures. Everything from milliways to the robot in the background. It's a Tesla robot serving somebody in the car. Over toward the right side, somebody is walking in one of the Shiba Inu Dogecoin dogs. Milliways, of course, is the restaurant at the end of the universe and at the end of time. From the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, even the meteors going across the sky, and then the last picture you had the Starlink background in the sky and the logo. So all kinds of fun little Easter eggs throughout there. It's kind of hard to see, but just besides the clock that reads 4:20, just down to the left of that clock happened to be Joe Rogan and Elon Musk smoking a blunt together. There you go. There you go.
Well, somebody had fun with that picture. I didn't even notice the 420 connection. You caught that?
George helped point that out
George,
for me.
Okay. All right.
And I don't know who that is to the left of them. I'm sure every little element in this particular in these particular photos has some sort of second meaning. There's your Shiba Inu dog. So there are secondary meanings all throughout these pictures.
How cool
It's a
is
ton
that?
of fun. I don't know what the USFWS stands for. I'm sure there's a second meaning for that, and so lots of fun on these.
It's Twitter right here.
So,
Oh yes, Twitter in the background.
so as Jesse pointed out, the cars are in the wrong orientation to view the drive-in screens. He was right. It turns out that we believe the screens will not be doing full-featured type movies, by the way. They'll be previews. Is that right? Is that what the article said?
Yeah, that was my understanding too.
But it's primarily the second deck on top of this diner that will be available for viewing the screens easily. Unless I guess they were done charging and just flipped the car around. Someone did point out, yeah, I can see that's going to be a problem because as they're done charging, they're going to continue watching the movie and, clogging up that stall.
I could see that being one of the most popular Tesla supercharging locations in the world.
Yeah.
Once this is all done.
But, congratulations again to Tesla for, doing something different, having fun, fundamentally.
Yes.
With something like this. This could have been a QT gas station, as blah as they look.
Absolutely. Yeah. It could have been.
Well done. Congratulations. So, looks like we got some comments here. Highlander says, yes, Farrah Fawcett. Wow. I had her bikini poster. I think I was 6 or 7 when I watched The Graduate. There you go.
Yep. Then Lightning Rod follows up, banging in the warehouse, solid money.
You got that right. Yes, the sound of money. George is saying, Jesse should ask for more money for soundproofing. We actually are working on that. Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah, some more sound foam and stuff.
Yeah.
I've been asking for a whole new studio.
Are you seeding these guys and letting them know before
yeah, these
the
are my
podcast
these are my
what you
plans.
want so that
Got them out there.
Jesse secretly has like 12 cell phones over there, and he's
No.
just switching between the accounts.
It's all me.
Pete, I have a little bit of a sound engineering background.
Yeah.
If you get the recycled cotton insulation from Home Depot, it has the same sound dampening capabilities and characteristics of some of this soundproofing foam, and it's about a quarter of the cost.
Now you're appealing to my money saving.
Okay, but
Well, of course.
Does it
Needs-
look
yeah.
as cool though?
Is
It
it
does not
aesthetically
look as
pleasing?
cool. Yeah.
Well, what you do is you put it into a wood frame, cover it with a black fabric, and it looks just like the soundproofing foam, and you've ended up spending maybe a third the cost.
Brilliant idea. What do you think, guys?
Mm.
They're moaning. YouTube. Ed Prelitz is joining us. Welcome, Ed. He says, since Tesla's based in Linux, do you utilize any packet frame sniffing software to inspect data the cars send or log to Tesla to help diagnose repairs?
Great question.
Yeah.
And we do have some tools that are in Linux that we use, and so we don't necessarily have to use packet or frame sniffing software. We're able to actually use the suite of tools, and we do have the ability, of course, to read the logs. Peter Gruber Jr. is one of the people who helped develop a really useful utility that helps to parse those log files and get that information out in a way that's easily readable to us. His tool is not the only one that we use. But short answer, Ed, yes, we do use software, but we don't have to go down to the packet and frame sniffing level.
Instagram, 5starsolar.energy says, wow, I'm so happy to see you on live. Well, welcome. Yeah, we do these Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday we have our power. That's a different group. But yeah, so you can see us at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time those 3 days. And if you're really up for something unusual, Sunday mornings at 10 o'clock, Jesse and I come in and we talk about artificial intelligence and all of its ramifications and attempting to squelch the hysteria that surrounds it.
That's right. Lightning Rod says, regarding the solar, it's a 20-year payback with no money down, right? The last time we looked, that was almost exactly what they told us, and we were like, "Yeah, no thanks. We're not gonna do that."
TikTok. Jake Wise says, "What do you guys think about Aptera? It reminds me of the Roadster. True. I read that Aptera is going to use the Tesla plug. That is correct. They're using the NACS standard. You know, these days we stopped reporting on who has switched over to NACS because the dominoes are falling so quickly, we can't keep up anymore.
I think we would agree with 100%. They did join NACS for charging, and a bunch of other companies did too. Everyone will use the Tesla NACS standard within the next year or two. Even the Society of Automotive Engineers, the SAE, is now saying that NACS is going to become their standard as opposed to CCS, or that's what we're hearing anyway.
It's a wonderful solution.
And George on YouTube says, "Hey Mark, I sent you a drive-in picture with an Easter egg of Mr. Pete hidden in it. I'll have to take a look at that."
We'll have to post that next week.
Yes.
We've got a Facebook visitor, Anthony Venditti, says, "Guys, thanks to you guys, I just purchased a 2023 Tesla Model Y." Well, good for you. I have a comment. Oh, Jesse, did you hear that? He's been on the fence about buying a Tesla Model Y. We have a viewer that bought one, and he's happy with it, you see?
He got one of the older ones, though. The newer one that I want, the 2023 with the hardware 4. It's actually, they're just now in select markets sending that out to a few customers for the full self-driving beta. So the new hardware, even though it's the most advanced 4K cameras and stuff, doesn't work right now with the advanced autopilot and or enhanced autopilot and full self-driving. So I'm glad he likes his, though. Those are solid cars.
Well, he's asking if we can comment about it, which we're doing right now. So far, he says, I'm not too enthusiastic about the energy conservation. Seems like this car uses a lot of energy just sitting around, keeping the car cool. Yeah, don't pay any attention to any of this, Jesse. You're on the fence now about buying one. I want to keep you right there, okay? So close your ears at this point. I found out this car has cabin cooling as it sits around. Yes, we do use that here in Phoenix, by the way. I know it's a waste of energy, but, you know, you go in a restaurant, for example, and you can't find a shady parking spot, and it's 115 out. You know when you get in that car, you're going to be baking for the next 10 minutes.
And they don't
it's going to take forever to cool down.
The one thing that's been keeping me on the fence, they don't have cooled seats either.
Oh,
you can't get any like vented seats or anything in there. You'd have to do that aftermarket if you wanted that.
Well, you sure are getting selective, Jesse.
Wow.
I mean, based on that thing that you're driving now, it doesn't have any of those features.
No, I drive a Ford, and I can start it from. I drive it from. I can start it from inside the office, and it has cooled seats. That's why I got it.
Oh, okay. All
yeah,
right.
okay. I have those are when it's 115. It's 125 in the car.
Right.
You got to have that.
Well, yeah, that's if you're parked under the parking.
Well, so Anthony continues. Sorry to keep cutting you off, but he says, I found, I understand it has a lot of electronics in the cabin. Bit to have to keep it that cool seems like such a waste of energy.
I think it was to have to keep it that cool.
Yeah, okay. See, I read whatever's on the screen, guys.
Yes.
You got to stop doing that.
Any other suggestions to save energy?
Wow. Well, just park in shady spots. That's probably the biggest one, especially here in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, and it does not hurt the car from the electronic standpoint to have that cabin energy turned off. I don't know on the Model Y for sure because I haven't driven one. I know on the Model S, you can set the default so that it does not turn the cabin cooling on while the car is unattended.
Highlander says, need local info. Some company named Freeport McMoran, a mining company in Arizona. They want me in Colorado. You're in Arizona. Is it known to be a good place to work? Actually, we have a lot of experience with Freeport McMoran. They've gone through a number of gyrations. Used to be Phelps Dodge 30 years ago, and it was one of the first companies that we began doing business with. They are reputable. They're sizable. They are well known. They are active in the community, and yes, I would give them a high rating in terms of a company to work for. I haven't heard any complaints.
Absolutely, and we do work with them here in Arizona. We do work with them up at their site in Colorado as well.
Mm-hmm. YouTube, PYGKLB points out Jeff Bezos is to the left of Joe Rogan in that.
That's what I was thinking too. I just don't know the context for it, but yeah.
Okay, and then he says the USFWS is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service with the logo on that car.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
More's being revealed.
Yes. And then George, of course, is coming back with another good, astute observation here. Says, plus non-Teslas will be taking up spots at the new Tesla Service Center diner.
Good point. Yes. Yeah, we'll see other brands of cars there.
Yep.
Yeah, Dean Richard is joining us. He says he is at the airport on my way to see his Roadster, which is here, number 295.
Oh, yes.
He says, listening to you guys talk about my car, I will be there tomorrow. Looking forward to meeting with you. We will make time for you, Dean. And yeah, you'll love the shop. By the way, your car is it is everything that it was stated to be. We were talking about the yellow seats; those are very unique.
Yeah,
and yeah, I think you'd be very happy with it.
Highlander on YouTube, another comment for us. He says, "Put up the Buchanan tartan in your new studio. That would be hip to be square." P.S. I'm asking my cousins to watch Friday's Power Show. If one or two show up, I would consider it a success. See you Friday.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, those power guys are having fun doing it. We have the video that was released now, and we're going to be doing a lot more of those on-site actual productions where we show the type of work our field engineers do to keep the equipment running, do preventive maintenance, replace batteries. You know, the one that we missed was actually about 10 years ago or so, where the county here, Maricopa County, took our guys in a helicopter up to a mountaintop here. They had an installation or have an installation up there, and we ended up replacing equipment up there. And these helicopters were freight carrying type helicopters. They were
my gosh,
huge,
that would have been
massive.
So cool.
Yeah. Mono Gachero from Instagram says, how did you guys get into electronics? Oh my God, I've been doing it since I was a kid, literally. It was just a passion. My friends would look at me and say, what's wrong with you? Basically. Yeah. My first real breakthrough was I saved enough money, birthday money, by the way, to get a 20-in-1 electronics kit. What this allowed you to build was 20 different devices, like a simple crystal radio, a little amplifier, a blinking light, a strobe light, all of those types of things. But yeah, I've always had a passion for it, and it just stuck.
My software background is similar. I still remember getting home. I was a junior in high school. I'm in the early days of the PCs here. So we had at school in Alaska, the Alaska school system was much more into money than many other school systems in the U.S.
Right.
So they had a computer lab in 1982 that had 30 PCs in it. And they were called Corona PCs. They were a desktop. They were an IBM clone. And I would stay there to do my programming and assignments and stuff. And the school didn't kick me out. So one night I stayed there and I realized, man, it's starting to get late. I'm kind of getting tired. And I look at my watch and it's 11:30 in the evening. So I've been there since 1:30. I skipped dinner and everything. I finally get home about midnight. And my dad is still up and he's like, I was about to take off and try to find you. What were you doing? I'm like, oh, I was working on a program.
Did he buy it?
He did.
He did. Okay. Well, he knew you.
In fact, he knew me 6 months later when summertime came. I didn't want to go outside and do anything. I wanted to program on the computer. I learned that the community college had some, but the community college was 30 miles away.
Right.
He and my mom bought me a $1,200 PC with the monitor and stuff, and so that's what I spent my summer doing as in between a junior and senior. I was forever grateful.
So my inquisitiveness about all things electronics and got me in trouble at times because my friends' moms oftentimes were mad at me because I showed the kids how you can take the toy apart, take the motor out, and power it directly, and it was far more interesting that way than it was in the toy. All right, George is back with us. He says, Jesse, first thing you need to get on your new Tesla in that Arizona heat is ceramic window tint. It even comes in clear. It keeps a lot of the heat and UV rays out of the car, even clear on the windshield. We also have, of course, tinting here. And the local law enforcement really in Arizona isn't that stringent on the type of tint that you put on your cars. I mean, we've had limo tint on our cars, and they really don't bother you. Now, if you go to California, you're going to be in trouble. They'll pull you over the.
There's a tint shop close by because we like to partner with the local vendors, and it gives us the ability to offer services. We've done that with PPF. Recently, Victor had me do that with the tint on my Model S. A place called Capital Tint, just around the corner. They put one of those ceramic tint jobs on the car, including on the sunroof. Amazing.
Really, it makes a big difference.
Oh my gosh. Before, it was going to, it would be 100 degrees outside, and I would feel like I was getting sunburned on my head, even with the sunroof closed. Now, afterwards, it doesn't bother me at all. And so Victor's encouraging me not only for my car in the summertime, but so that we have something to show customers to go ahead and get that clear tint on the windshield.
Very cool. Did you hear that, Jesse? So you can reduce the heat in your vehicle.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll give me a Gruber discount though, because that's like an extra $1,000 that I don't really have.
Oh, is it that much?
For the high end ceramic, high heat resistant one, yeah, it's not cheap.
Wow.
I don't know how much Capital Tint charges, by the way.
Yeah.
Ed
should probably figure that out.
Yeah,
though,
probably
if
should.
Any more cars?
Ed Prelitz on YouTube says, "Can I turn in my time travel ticket from the past to travel into the future yet, Pete?"
Oh, wow, Ed, you remember that? Yeah. We were into AI before it was even a thing. Let me just describe it briefly without getting into too much detail here. I posted something out on Quora one time when it first got started, and I said, I'm puzzled. We know that technology continues to improve by quantum leaps.
Yes.
So we know that at some point time travel will be a reality. Isn't it odd that no one from the future is coming back to see us now? And that Quora post for 10 years or so continued to provide lots of content. But it also inspired something that we began to sell on eBay, which was a permission ticket. The theory was the reason they're not coming back is because we have to give them permission to do so.
Okay.
So we created a Telemagic, a CRM package. We were selling these for like $1 a piece, and people were buying them left and right to get their ticket so that the future people could come back to see us now.
Yes, so they were giving permission.
Exactly.
And I think what's happened is that the right people still haven't gotten that ticket yet.
Exactly. And I don't know how to go into the future to give it to them.
I don't either.
All right. Well, AI is going to help us with that, I'm sure. All right. We need to stay in touch. Someone else said there. Highlander, yes. All right. And
he was saying, thank you for the info on the job. And so we definitely want to stay in touch with you, Highlander.
Okay.
Instagram, 5-Star Solar Energy. I would like to join you in workshop. I work in DC to AC electronics.
Oh, really? Okay. That's definitely what we do as well. Both Gruber Motor Company and Critical Power. Same technology, different application.
Yep.
George says one of us would buy it. All right. Maybe we should start selling time travel tickets again.
Yeah.
The CRM exists. Is $1 a piece okay, guys?
We should adjust for inflation.
Yeah. Oh, adjust for inflation. All right. Make it $1.25.
There we go.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Well, we have a lot more content, but we're out of time. We're at an hour and a half, and time flies when you're having fun. It really does. And we'll just carry this over into the next Wednesday discussion. For those of you that have Roadsters, we've got a lot more to cover here. What we're going to talk about next week then is what to do when your Tesla Roadster gets bricked. And I'm still amazed after 10 years of doing this, how many people get those steps wrong.
Yeah.
So we're going to reiterate that. We're also going to talk about some technical things like what is this thing about the bleed test errors in a Tesla Roadster and the rivets that we end up taking out of the packs? And why might you not be immune from bleed test errors even though you have an R80 battery pack? And we'll talk about that as well.
Good stuff.
Yeah. And George says, now an hour and a half, Jesse's going to start getting antsy. You couldn't see him, but he's doing this behind the scenes constantly.
Yes.
Highlander also says, you know what happens when a 9-year-old kid uses a Brillo pad as a conductor? Because I ran out of wire.
Yes, I do know. Steel wool and Brillo pads are a lot of fun, even with a little 9-volt battery.
Oh, they sure are a great way to start a campfire.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right. Are we going to close up? All right.
I think we're set. So come see us tomorrow, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. That's or Pacific Daylight Time, same thing. And we'll look forward to seeing you then.
Take care.